Hello guys, welcome to the next session of developing e-commerce application from scratch using Angular and Spring Boot. In the last session, we discussed on how we can create a backend API to order any product. So basically we are working on this buy now functionality. So in the buy now functionality, we have different aspects. So we have to write some code at the back end, and we have to write some code at the front end as well. So in the last session, we discussed on how we can create the API to place the order for any specific product. In this session, we are going to focus on mainly UI parts. So we are going to whatever we have created in the back end, we are going to integrate those changes with the UI as well. So let me just quickly show you what we have created in the last session. So let me just take you to the order detail controller, and this order detail controller, we have created one API that is called as a place order, and this place order API is basically accessible to only users, and this basically takes one input. So in the input, it basically takes the full name, full address, contact number, alternate contact number, and alongside it takes one list as well. So this list is nothing but a product ID, like whichever product that we are going to buy, and the quantity, like how much quantity that product we want to buy. So this is the input that we have to pass to this particular API. Now let's see how we can integrate these API with the UI, and how we can work with the UI. So let me just quickly take you to the VS Code. And over here, what we have to do is, first of all, we have to create one component. So let me just first of all create one component that is called as a, let's suppose, buy product component. So I'm just creating one new component. So yes, component is created. Now let me just serve my application. Okay, so the component is created. The next thing that we have to do is we have to we have to just go to the HTML file, and then over here we have to write some code. But before writing some code, let me just first of all configure a path as well. So let me just take you to the product view details page. Over here, let me just take you to the HTML page. Over here, what we have to do is, inside the HTML, first of all, I'm just creating one function that is called as a, let's suppose, buy product, like this. And this buy product, as of now, I'm just not giving anything as a parameter. Over here we require the product ID, but let's see. So this buy product we have to create in the TS file. So let me just take it to the TS file. Now the next thing that we have to do is we have to first of all inject the router. So let me just inject private router, which will be of type router, which comes from @angular/router. And then what we have to do is we have to use this router navigate, and then we have to just give a path, which will be, let's suppose, /buy product, like this. And there are few parameters that we have to pass, but as of now I'm not going to pass any parameters, because I want to explain few things before passing the actual parameters. So over here, first of all, like whatever we have used a path over here, which is a buy product, then we have to configure this path in our routing module as well. So let me just take you to the routing module, which is app routing module, and then let me just give a comma, and then path /buy product component will be a buy product component, like this. There are few things that we still left back, like we have to pass the resolvers and all, but I'll just first of all explain like what we are going to do, and then only we will write the code over here. Now before writing any code into the VS Code, let me just tell you quickly, like there is one API that we want to create at the backend. So first of all, let me just explain what we are going to do is, so over here, let's suppose, as of now it is giving me the error. Let's see, that is the reason it is not able to serve the application. Okay, so let me just save my changes. Let's see. Yes, and okay, so let me just try to inspect the changes. So it is giving like invalid configuration of root slash byproduct, path cannot be start with a slash. Okay, so I think I have done some mistakes over here, so I don't have to give the slash in this app routing module TS file. Yes, so now it is working perfectly fine. So now what I'm going to do is, let's suppose whenever I'm clicking on the button of this buy now, so the product ID is 3 and I'm clicking on this buy now button. So what I want is, I want to open a new component where we will see some form where we will take the like full name, full address and contact numbers, alternate contact number, like whatever information that we require from the user, we will take that information from the user. But alongside, let's suppose whenever I'm clicking on the buy now button, I will move to the next component and I will pass my product ID 3 because I want to buy this product ID 3, like I want to buy this particular product which is having the ID 3. So when I am moving to the new component, I want all the information of this product ID 3, because like we are going to calculate the bills and we are going to show the bill to the user as well, right? So that is the reason we want all the information of this product ID that we are going to buy in the next component. So over here we want to fetch those details from the database, right? And like to fetch some details from the database, we require some time, because obviously like we are going to perform a database operation, we require some time over here. So to resolve these issues, there is something called as a resolver in Angular. So what issue I'm trying to say over here? So let's suppose there is one HTML page and there is one database operation. So what we are going to do is, we are going to first of all take the information from the database, and then that information we are going to show onto the HTML file. So the database operation requires some time, but Angular will not wait for it. Angular will render the HTML into the DOM, right? And if the HTML file gets rendered into a DOM before the data is actually present, so that might end up with getting some errors. So resolvers helps in resolving this issue. What the resolvers will do is, it will wait till the complete information is loaded from the database, and once the database operation is done, then and only then it will render the HTML. So in this way, like whatever sequence we want, like whatever sequence of operations we have, we can keep everything in a sequence, so there will not be any issues to render the HTML. So that is the reason we have to create the resolvers. So we are going to create the resolvers, and we have previously also created the resolvers, but this time we want something different. So that is the reason we can't use existing, we have to create a new one. So that is the one thing that we are going to do. The next thing that we are going to do is, we are going to create one API. So let me first of all tell you what API that we are going to create. So let's suppose over here we have the product ID 3. So I'm going to create one API which will return us all the information which is having the product ID 3. Now the main question is, why I am creating the new API? Because previously also we have created some APIs which returns us the information by taking the ID. So over here we have the API, if you see get product details by ID. So this API is going to take the product ID and it returns all the information which belongs to that product, right? But we can't use this existing API. The reason is why I'm not going to use this existing API is because we want some different parameters as well, right? So over here we have the product ID, but alongside we want some different parameters, and depending upon the different parameters we are going to work on some logic, and then we are going to return the products. So now I will just create that API and then I will explain like what I'm thinking over here. So let me just do one thing. In the product controller, let me just use public, and as of now let me just keep it as a void, and then let me just use get product details like this, and this will be a get mapping, and I will just use get mapping /get mapping, And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply a security as well, because this API I just want to available only for the user. Now the next thing that comes in mind is what are the different parameters that we are thinking over here. Then very first parameter that I'm thinking over here is, let's suppose, boolean is single product checkout, is single product checkout. And then the next parameter is integer and product ID. So now product ID is really very simple, like you all must know that what this parameter may contain, but this particular parameter that is single product checkout is like I'll just explain a bit about it. So in the future we are going to implement one functionality that is called as a cart functionality. So people can add any product into a cart, and then people can check out the entire cart. So in a cart, what we can have multiple products at the same time, and then we can place order for those multiple products in a one shot with the help of cart, right? So in the cart, what I'm going to do is, like whatever component I'm going to create, like buy now component, I'm going to use same component for the cart functionality as well for the checkout. So that is the reason what we have is, like what we want is, we want to differentiate between them. So right now we are thinking from the perspective of only buying the single product which is having the ID 3, but in the future we are going to work on the cart functionality. So in the cart, like we want the differentiation, we want to write the logic, and while writing the logic we want some key, like some flag which will indicate that whether we are going to buy a single product or whether we are going to check out the entire cart. And that is the reason I am using this particular flag. So this particular flag will indicate true if we are going to check out a single product. It will indicate false if we are going to check out the entire cart. As of now we don't have a cart, but considering the future, considering the upcoming features that we are going to use, I'm just adding this particular key. So I hope you got an idea around this. Like if you don't have idea at this particular moment, just try to follow my code. In a few upcoming sessions you will get all these things, like how we can think on the future perspective as well. Now let me just add this in a path as well, slash product ID. Like this, and then we have to give the annotation as well, which is a path variable. Name is equals to is single product checkout, and for the second parameter also we have to use @path variable, and name is equals to product ID, like this. Now inside a controller we don't have much to do. What we have to do is we have to just create a service, and inside the service we have to create this function. So let me just use product service. In a product service, let me just use public. As of now let me keep it as void get product details, and again it is going to take two parameters, boolean is single product checkout, comma integer product ID, like this. And now what we have to do is we just want to first of all check, like is single product checkout is equals to true. If is single product checkout, that means we are going to buy a single product, else we are going to check out entire cart. Okay, so I hope you are getting the functionality that we are trying to implement over here. The next thing that we have to do is, let me just first of all create one list, and that list will be of product. list is equals to new array list. And then the next thing that we have to do is we have to use product DAO dot find by ID, and we have to pass the product ID, and then we have to use dot get method. The reason why I'm using dot get method is because like it returns find by ID returns an optional, so from the optional we have to fetch our product details, so that is the reason we have to use a dot get method. So this will return us a single product. So let me just save it into a product p product like product is equals to product DAO dot find by ID, like this. And then next thing that we have to do is we have to just list, we have to add this particular product in a list like this, and then at the end we have to return the list like this. And over here right now we have the void, that is the reason it is giving us the error. So let me just change it to the list of product like this, and at the end as of now we have to just return new array list like this. And now let me just take you to the controller, and I will just explain you why I'm just returning list over here, but let me just take you to the controller first, and then let me just use product service dot get product details, and first parameter let me just pass is single product checkout comma product ID, and whatever list it will return I will just return that list as it is. So as of now let me just use as of now we have to change the return type as well to the list of product. Now over here the reason why I'm just using a list instead of single product is again considering the feature feature that we are going to implement in upcoming sessions. So as I said, in upcoming sessions we are going to work on the cart functionality as well. So in a cart obviously we will be having the multiple products. So that is the reason like when we will implement the cart and when we will be having multiple products, then we have to return a list, and that is the reason I'm returning list over here. So I hope you are getting the idea like what I'm trying to achieve. Now let me just restart the application because we are done with the API creation. Let me just wait till my application starts successfully, and yes, application is started. Now let me just come back to the VS Code, and over here what we have to do is we have to create one resolver. So as I explained why we are going to use a resolver. So let me just create one service, because resolver is nothing but a normal service in Angular. So let me just use nggs, and let me just give the resolver name like by, or okay, so let me just give the name as by product resolve, by product resolver like this, and let me just wait till the files are created. Yes, now files are created, and I can just use the ngserve. Now meanwhile what we have to do is in the app routing module TS, what we have to do, we have to just configure the API, and we have to just configure the auth guard as well. So let me just copy this particular thing which we have wrote previously, like can activate is equals to auth guard, and let me just give it, then data roles should be the admin. So let me just paste it over here, but let me just change the role to the user because we are allowing only users to access this particular API. Then let me just give a comma, and then let me just use resolve is equals to, over here let me just use product details, and then let me just give the by product resolver service like this. And now over here I'm just getting one error. Let's see what is happening. So I'm getting the red area over here. I think I have missed something, so let me just first of all check. Okay, so I have missed the ending curly bracket. So let me just give the ending curly bracket, and let me just try to first of all format the file. Yes, now it is looking perfectly fine and everything is perfect. The next thing that we have to do is we have to just go to the resolver and we have to implement the code to this resolver. So what I'm going to do over here is, over here we have to just first of all write implements and then we have to give a resolve. So resolve is nothing but the interface that we are going to implement, and we have to just give the end result. So what we are going to resolve is, ultimately we are going to resolve the product list that we are going to get from the backend. So we have to give this over here, and then over here we are getting the error because we are not implementing the methods which are required. So let me just click on quick fix and implement the methods like this. The next thing that we have to do is we have to just first of all remove this throw new error, and inside this we have to write the code. So what code that we are going to write is, first of all let me just inject the product service because we are going to call the API as well. So let me just inject product service, which will be of type product service. Now let me just go to the product service, and over here we have to create one API that we have just created at the backend. So let me just use get product details, and again it will take two different parameters. It will first of all take is single product checkout comma product ID. Then it will return this dot http client dot get, and then we have to give http colon slash slash localhost colon 9090 slash, then we have to give the API name. So let me just copy the API name, which is get product details, and let me just paste it over here. Then we have to append our very first parameter, which is its single product checkout, but make sure that you are giving slash at the end after the get product details. Then we have to again give a slash. So let me just use slash plus product ID like this, and it is going to return us the product list. So let me just use product list as a return type like this. Now our API, our function is done. Like we have created the get product details function in a service file. We have to call this get product details function in our resolver as well, because this is the function that we are that is going to return us the information, right? So over here let me just use return this dot product service dot get product details, and then over here we have to pass two different parameters. So now the question is how we are going to take those parameters, because to pass the value we need those parameters, right? So we want value for those two parameters, right? Like we want the product ID, and then we want the its single product checkout flag true or false as well. So how we are going to get it, like let me just take you to the product view details page inside the HTML. Now inside the HTML we have added this click event, which is a buy product. Then let me just add as one parameter over here, which is the product ID. So how we can do this? So we can just use product dot product ID like this. And now let me just take you to the TS file of the product view details dot component, and then let me just add the product ID over here like this. And then the next thing that we have to do is we have to pass the parameters inside this dot router dot navigate. So over here we are just giving the path, which is a slash by product. Similarly we have to give the parameters as well. So in the same way we in the same line we can give those particular parameters. So again, given the parameters is really very simple. What we have to do is we have to just give the entire object. So let me just first of all give a comma, and let me just give the curly bracket. So curly bracket, what I'm trying to say over here, because in general we use curly bracket as an object. Then very first parameter that we have to give is single checkout. So make sure you are just using the correct spellings and all, because like I have used this for multiple times, so that is the reason I'm not copy pasting, because I know about the spellings. But just make sure that wherever you are using this particular flag in a front end, back end, make sure you are giving exact same spellings at the every time. So I will keep the value of this particular flag true, because obviously we are going to get a single product. That is the reason I'm just going to give the value as a true. And right now I'm just using ID over here. I'm not using the product ID, I'm using ID over here. So accordingly we have to change. So there are two parameters, is single product checkout, and then next one is a ID. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to first of all use the activated root snapshot. So let me just use root. So root is nothing but activated root snapshot. So what we have to do is we have to just use root.parammap.get, and we have to get the ID. So this particular ID like we have just passed over here, and the next parameter is single product checkout. But before that, let me just save the ID into some variable. Similarly, let me just create const is single product checkout is equals to root.parammap.get, and we are going to pass is single product checkout. I will just explain like what these particular things do, but let me just write some code first of all. And then the next thing that we have to do is like we have to just use get product details, and we have to pass is single product checkout, the very first parameter, and then ID, which is of a second parameter, like this. And then at the end we have to use a pipe as well, because like if you remember, like if you are following my series from very beginning, if you remember that we are currently storing all the images into a database, and whenever we store any image into a database, it gets stored as a picture byte. So like whenever we try to fetch the details from the database back, then what we get is we get product details, alongside we get those picture bytes, but we can't show those picture bytes as it is on the UI. We want to convert those picture bytes into the file or blob so that we can show them on a UI, right? So if you are following my series, you must be knowing this. So that is the reason previously also we have created one service which is called as an image processing service, and we have to call that service over here with the help of pipe. So let me just use dot pipe, and inside the dot pipe we have to just use a map. Let me just use a map, and then inside the map what we have to do is we have to just use x, which will be of type product array, because it is going to return us the product array, and then second parameter will be an index. Like at the end, at the very first, it is going to return us the x. So x is nothing but the product array, and x is the name that I'm just giving. Like you can give any name, you can just there is no any issue. So we are going to get the product array. So from product array we want a single product. So what we can do is we can just use x.map. It is going to give us a single product. So let me just again use product, which will be of type product. So as of now, if you just see, I'm just using only product over here because it is going to give us a single product. Then let me just give this particular arrow, and then what we have to do is we have to just use this dot image processing service. But as of now, I haven't injected the even image processing service. So let me just inject private image processing service, which will be of type image processing service. And we have to just use that this dot image processing service dot create images, and then what we have to pass is we have to just pass the entire product like this. So I hope you are getting this, and I hope you are not getting confused, because we have used a lot of time. So I'm just not going to explain every single thing, but I'm just giving the small idea, like we are going to get the picture bytes from the database, but we can't show those picture bytes directly on the UI. We have to convert it to the file or blob, and that is the reason we have created this image processing service previously. And I will give you all the links, like you can just check out those particular sessions. And let me just import this particular map. And now we are just done with this particular resolver. The next thing that we have to do is, let me just first of all close this resolver, and let me just close this product view detail as well, and product view detail HTML as well. The next thing that we have to do is, now we have to come to the buy now buy product component. So let me just first of all come to the HTML file. Over here we will try to create our form, so that we can take the name, address, contact number details, and then we have to think on how we can place the order as well. Now let me just come to the HTML, the very first thing that we have to do. But before that, let me just go back to the Google Chrome. Let's see whether we are not getting any error and all. So let me refresh the application, and let me just now try to create on the buy now. So as of now, yes, obviously it will ask me to log in, because it is like this particular API is only accessible to the users. Let me just go to the home. Let me click on buy now. In the URL, if you see, like we are able to see those two parameters, which first one is single product checkout is equals to 2 and ID is equals to 3. As of now on Bello, we are not able to see anything because we haven't wrote any code for the same. Now let me just come back to the Google Chrome, VS Code, and then over here let me just first of all use a division which is having the class as a container. Then for this container, let me just apply one more class, that is empty5. Empty5 is nothing but a margin top 5. All these classes like container and empty5 are bootstrap classes. Then let me just create one more division which is having the class that is called as a card. And then what we have to do is we have to create one more division which is having the class as a row. Again we have to create one more division which will be having the class that is called as a column 6. So column 6 is nothing but I'm just using a bootstrap grid system over here. So in total, like bootstrap divides a row in 12 columns. Among those 12 columns, I'm going to use 6 columns at the left hand side and 6 columns at the right hand side. That is the reason I have created this particular structure. And if you just want, you can just write some dummy text which is lorem ipsum in each column, and you can just see the difference, like see the output on a Google Chrome. So now if you just see, like we are able to see the left hand side section and right hand side section, and they are equally distributed. Like there are 12 columns, 6 columns are allocated to the left hand side and 6 columns are allocated to the right hand side. So what is my plan is, on the left hand side, what we will do, we will just give the form to take the full name, full address, contact number and alternate contact number. On the right hand side, we will generate the bill as well. So maybe in this particular session, we will focus on the left hand side section and how we can place the order. Maybe generating the bill, we can just take a look into a next section. It will be depends upon the time that this particular session takes. Right now, let me just add one thing, which is a padding. So let me just come back to the VS Code, and for this cart, let me just use p-3, which is padding 3, and yes, now it is looking perfectly fine. The next thing that we have to do is we have to create one form at the left hand side. So for the form, we require 4 different parameters, 4 different like fields. So let me just remove this lorem ipsum from the left hand side section, and then we have to pass a form over here. So again, we have created form for a lot of time. So let me just copy one small thing from existing one, which is from our add new product component.html. So previously also we created a form. So let me just copy one single field from it, and then I can just create all the other remaining fields. Let me just use /form like this. And over here, the very first thing that I need to do is I just need to format this particular HTML file. And yes, now it is looking perfectly fine. The next thing that we have to do is we have to, give the names. So I will just give the name as order form, and let me just pass that order form over here, and let me just use the method name as a place order. These methods are still, like, we haven't created those methods, but as of now I'm just giving the name. In a moment we will create those methods. And then let me just give it to the give the name as full name, like label name, and then let me just use the placeholder as a full name only. So let me just copy it and let me just paste it, and then let me just give it as a full name like this. And now let me just copy this particular field and let me just paste it 3 more times, because in total we have 4 different fields, so we want it for the 4 times. The next field that we have after the full name is full address. So let me just use full address. Let me just give it to the label as well like this, and let me just give it as a field name as well, but make sure that you are just using the correct naming conventions for this name. The next thing that we have is, and again make sure that whatever names you are giving to this particular field, which is full name, full address, are exactly same as the variables that we have used in the backend. So let me just show you that class. Yes, so order input, so we have used full name, full address, contact number and alternate contact number. Make sure that you are giving the exactly same names everywhere, because it will not give you any error. If you are using the different names, then we have to manually map those fields. So to avoid this manual process, we have to just make sure that we are using correct spellings and everywhere in a front end and back end also. Now let me just come to the full address. Then we have the contact number. So let me just copy, let me just give contact number, and let me just give it as a placeholder as well, which is a contact number, like this. And lastly we have the alternate contact number. So we have alternate contact number. Let me just copy the name and let me just give it to the placeholder, and let me just give it to the field name as well, alternate contact number, like this. And lastly we want one button. So let me just use the division, and let me just use button type is equals to submit. Then we have to use matte stroked button, and color is equals to primary, and text will be a place order, like this. And one more thing that we have to use, align is equals to right, like this. And now let me just save the changes and let's see what we are able to see on the Google Chrome. Over here we are getting the error, so I think we will not see anything on the Chrome, but let's, okay, so we are able to see the partial output on the Chrome. So what we have to do is, first of all we have to just work on this particular thing, these particular errors. So let me just create one method that is called as a place order in a TS file. So this will resolve our first error. So let me just use public place order, which will be taking one input which is of type ng form, like this. The next error that we have is we have on line number 14 for this ng model. So we are going to use a two-way binding, and we are going to bind like object to this particular field. So to bind the object, first of all we have to create it, and to create the object we want to create a type as well. We want to create a model class as well. So in a model class, let me just create a new file, and let me just give the name as order details, or we can just say that order dash details dot model dot ts. Okay, now inside this order details, what we have to do is we have to write export interface order details, like this. And then inside these order details we have to give all the properties. So we have we have very few properties to give. So very first property that we have is we have this full name, full address, contact number and alternate contact number. Alongside we have the list as well. So let me just copy the exact fields and let me paste it over here. So first of all we have to give a full name which will be of type string. The next thing that we have to give is a full address which will be again of type string. The next thing that we have to give is a contact number which will be again of type string. The next field we have is a alternate contact number which will be having again of type string. And then what we have is we have to give an array. So for this array again we have to create one more model. So I'm just going to create one more model which is like, let's suppose order quantity dot model dot ts. In this order quantity, let me again use export interface order quantity. There are two particular fields. So very first field is a product ID. Again I'm just giving the exactly same spellings that we have used over here, product ID. And then the second parameter is number, and then second parameter that we have is quantity. So let me just use quantity number, like this. And now let me just come back to our order details model. Over here we have to just give it as a order quantity array, like this. And now we can just close all these models. And now we can just come back to our by product component ts file. Inside this we have to create we have to initialize the object for this product order or the model that we just created. So okay, product details, yes. So we have to initialize the object for this product details. So how we are going to do is we are just going to use order details which will be of type order details is equals to, and then it is giving us the error. So we have to add those properties, like we have to add full name, then full address, contact number, alternate contact number and order product quantity list. So these are all the properties that we have to give. So all these properties that are listed over here, we have to just bind it to the form. So let me just use order details dot full name. Then we have to use order details dot full address. Then we have to use order details dot contact number. And lastly, we have to use order details dot alternate contact number. And now let me just save these changes. And now let me just take you to the Chrome. Let's see what happens. Okay, so now still we are getting the partial input. Let me just save my TS file as well. Yes, now it is looking perfectly fine, and we are able to see all these fields on a UI. As I said, on the right hand side section we are going to look into the next session, but right now let's focus on the left hand side section only. So what we are going to do is, now we have to just take this information and we have to pass it to the backend so that order can be placed. Now let me just come back to the VS Code, and over here the next thing that we have to do is, and it is really very important thing, is we have to previously, if you remember, we have created a resolver. So if I just take you to the routing module, so for this by product component we have used one resolver that is called as a by product resolver service, right? So now this by product resolver service is going to return us the list of product. Yes, it is going to return us the list of products, right? So we have to fetch those fetch that list of product very in a ng on init, and then and only then we have to do the next operations. So let me just take you to the by product.component ts. Inside this, let me just first of all use private activated root, which will be of type activated root, and inside the ng on init, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this dot activated root dot snapshot dot data. It is like nothing but I'm just going to fetch the details from the resolver. So we are doing that over here, and then we have to give product details. So in an app routing module we have used a product details, so we have to copy the exact same name and we have to give it over here like this. And let me just save it to the product details. So let me just create one more variable like product details is equals to, or let me just keep it as it is, product details, and or we can say that product details is equals to, which will be of type like product array is equals to an empty array like this. And I'm just going to use this dot product details is equals to this dot activated root dot snapshot dot data. In the bracket we have to give the name of the parameter that we want to fetch. Now once we receive all the product details, the next thing that we have to do is we have to just use this dot product details dot for each, and then for each element which is present into a product details we have to perform one operation. What we are going to do is we have to just use, let's suppose x is a variable name that I'm using. So for every single x, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this dot order details dot order product quantity list dot push. So over here we have to push. So what we have to push is we have to push the product ID. So what product ID we have to push? So we have to just use x dot product ID. I will just explain like what I'm trying to say over here, and quantity is equals to 1 like this. And now let me just save this. So now what I just did is, so I'll just explain. Order details is object that we are going to bind on our UI in our HTML file, right? So in the backend we have to send full name, full address, contact number, alternate contact number. Alongside we have to send one list. This list contains the product ID and its associated quantity, right? So now this is the single object that we are going to send to the backend, right? But our details like product details, whatever we have, product ID and every single thing is present in this array, like product details array. So how we are going to we need some connection between these product details and our order details, right? So I am making that connection over here. What I'm going to do is, as soon as I will receive the product details from our resolver, I'm just going to make one entry inside my order product quantity list. the product ID that I'm going to write, and the initial quantity will be the 1. Like initial quantity, I'm just going to keep it as a 1. And then after if user wants, then user can change it, but the initial quantity I'm just hard coding it as a 1. If user want, user can change it, but as of now initial value is a 1. I'm just going to make the entry inside these, like order product quantity list, and then user will fill this full name, full address, contact number and alternate contact number. User can fill it from the form that we have created, and we had already made entry into this order product quantity list. If user changed, let's suppose the quantity to the 2, then we have to change inside the same array. But as of now, as I said, like we are going to focus on only one quantity, right? So I hope you are getting these things. Like if you have some technical background, like maybe kind of mediator level background, then obviously you will get all these things in a quickly. But if you are a bit beginner, then I will just suggest you just take all these things like which you are getting easily. But if you are getting like if you are finding it too difficult, just write down the code, and ultimately like at the end, once you got the output, you will be able to see, like you will be able to get all these things. So that is the only thing that I can suggest. And just to make sure, I will just do console.log, and I will just use this.order details like this, and I'm just going to use console.log and this.product details as well like this, and I will just show you on the console, and you will get all these things. Let me refresh it. So now if you just see the first array it is printing is like the product details. So in a product details, we have the product ID 3, then we have the actual price, discounted price, we have all these things about the products. Alongside we have the images as well. So this is the product details, but the second console output is order details. In order details, as of now we don't have any full address, full name, but we have the order product quantity list. So what we did is we just made one entry inside the array. We just made it product ID as a 3. If you just see, like in an array, we have the product ID as a 3 and quantity is equals to 1. So we have hard coded the quantity as a 1. Now only thing that we have to do is we have to just take the information from the user, like full name and all the remaining information, and then we have to send this list to the backend. So now the only thing that we have left back is, let me just inject private, and let me just go to the service. I don't remember the service that we have created. I think let me just go to the product service, or okay, so I think the API that we have created for the place order, we haven't created a function for this. So to place order, we have created one API previously, which is this particular slash place order. So we have to call that particular API. So let me just go to the service, and let me just go to the product service, and let me just add public place order, and it is going to take the input like order details, which will be of type order details. It is going to return this dot http client dot post. It is going to return, as of now it is not going to return, so don't have to give the return type. And then let me just give http ://localhost 9090 / and then let me just give the API name. Let me just copy it from the IntelliJ, which is a slash placeholder, and at the end we have to pass a body, which is nothing but a order details like this. Now we have to inject this particular service, which is the product service. Let me just use product service, which will be of type product service like this, and inside the place order function, let me just use this dot product detail product this dot product service dot place order, and we have to pass this dot order details, and then we have to use a subscribe, and then we have to just use response. If at all we get any response, we will just use console.log response, and once we receive the response, I'm just going to use order form dot reset like this. And if at all, if something goes wrong, then we can have the error handler as well. So let me just use console.log error like this. And place order method that we have created, we have to call it from the HTML. So in the HTML, we have one button that is called as a place order. Let me just add a click event, and let me just give the place order like this. And or instead of the click event over here, we don't have to give a click event, we have to give the ng submit, and I think we have already given, yes, so we have already given the ng submit. So we are done with the HTML code as well. Now let me just run the application, and let me just take you to the Google Chrome, and now let me just refresh these, and now let me just open the console so that we can just see whether do we get any error or something like that. And now let me just first of all go to the home page. So before that, let me just open the database. I just want to see whether my order is getting placed or not. So let me just use my e-commerce DB. Inside the e-commerce DB, let me just take you to the tables. So we have order details tables. As of now, we have only one order that is created, but an order ID is 16. So now let's see whether we are able to create a new order or not. So let me just click on this, and product ID is 3 if you just see into a URL. And now I just want to buy it, so let me click on buy now, and now let me just fill my details. So let me just take it as a Harsh. Full address, let's suppose Mumbai. Contact number, let me just give some random contact number. Internet contact number also, let me just give some random. And now let me just try to place the order. And remember, we have already set the quantity hard coded to the 1. So as of now, only order will be placed for only quantity 1. Okay, in upcoming session we are going to change that quantity. Now let me just click on the place order. So as of now, if you just see, like we are not able to place the order. Like let's see what happened. Let me just take you to the VS Code, or let me just take you to the database first. I just want to see whether my order is getting placed or not. Yes, so we are able to place my order. Like we are able to see the order ID 17, and we are able to see the order amount as 1500, and we are able to see my name, then address, and then order status as placed. So we are able to see every single thing that we have created. The only thing that we are not able to achieve is we are not able to reset the form. So let's see what we are doing wrong over here. So let me just go to the TS file, and we are just okay. So we have missed these brackets like this. So let me give those brackets, and now let me just do one thing. Let me just try to use let's suppose Raj, then address, let's suppose Pune, contact number, again I'm giving some random contact number, quantity is 1. Let me just place the order, and yes, now we are able to reset the form, and order should be placed in a database. So let me just refresh it, and yes, now we are able to see the order ID is equals to 18, and we are able to see like order amount as a 1500. So let's focus on this order amount. Let me just go to the product ID 3 again. Okay, so right now if you just see like product ID 3, but if you just see like we are able to see the product amount or order amount as a 1500, right? but on actual, if you just see, like order amount should be the 1200 because 1500 is a actual price. On the other hand, 1200 is a discounted price. So I think that is pretty simple. Let me just go to the IntelliJ. Let me just go to the place order service, and then over here, okay, over here on line number 42, if you just see, what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to use get product actual price. Instead of this, I just need to use get product discounted price like this, and now I can just restart the application and we will check the once and we will just end this particular session. So let me just go back to the Chrome now, and now let me just refresh the, and now let me just click on, let's suppose Raj, and then Mumbai, contact number. I'm just giving some random. As of now, we don't have any validation, so we can give anything, but make sure that you are just giving the numbers into this contact number, because if you are use any string or maybe any letters, we might end up with getting some exceptions. Now we are able to place the order. Let me just refresh it. Order number 19, and yes, now we are able to see the order amount as a 1200. So I hope you got an idea like how we can create the UI changes to place the order. Again, there are a lot of things we have left back, especially the right hand side thing, but I hope you are getting the idea like how we can think from the perspective of the future and the features that we are going to implement in the future, and how we can write the code. I tried my best to explain every single thing, but again, there are some limitations. I can't explain every single small thing in this session, but if you still have any questions, let me know into a comment section and we can just discuss on those questions in upcoming sessions. In the next session, we will probably focus on the right hand side and we will see how we can generate the bill as well. So I hope you got an idea around this, like how we can integrate the place order API in a UI, and I hope you enjoyed this session, and I'll see you in the next session.